As the city of Everett continues to grow over the next 20 years, the city has identified 3 funding options for transit services in Everett. Improving transit as the city grows provides important benefits across the community. This video explains how these options will affect transit services in Everett. The current funding option would allow Everett Transit to slowly restore some of the service cut during the COVID-19 pandemic, but would not provide enough revenue to keep up with the expected growth in jobs and population in Everett. Under this option, the sales tax rate would stay at 0.6%. The growth option would provide moderate growth in transit service over a 10-year period. This option would increase frequency of local bus service, expand operating hours in the mornings, evenings, and on weekends, and expand access to jobs in Everett. The funding level for this option would limit the ability of the transit system to provide adequate service in Everett as the city grows over the next 10 years. The current transit sales tax would be increased to 0.9%. The growth through consolidation option would involve merging Everett Transit with Community Transit. Major service improvements would be achieved within 2 years, and service would continue to grow as travel demand increases. It would increase bus routes and frequency of bus service, and provide the greatest access to jobs for Everett residents. This option would reduce walk time to bus stops and expand operating hours in the morning, evening, and on weekends. The current transit sales tax would increase to 1.2%. Let's take a look at some examples to show how these options might affect your transit experience. Jasmine lives near Casino and 5th and is traveling to Mariner Park and Ride. Jasmine arrives at the bus stop a few minutes before it is scheduled to leave. Under the current funding option, the trip would take about 40 minutes. Jasmine would need to transfer once and would be waiting for each bus for an average of 25 minutes. Under the growth option, the trip would also take about 40 minutes. Jasmine would need to transfer once and would be waiting for each bus for an average of 25 minutes. Under the growth through consolidation option, the trip would take about 10 minutes and Jasmine would not need to transfer. Let's now look at how Jamal's transit experience would be affected. Jamal lives in the Silver Lake area and needs to run some errands at the Mill Creek Town Center. Jamal arrives at the bus stop a few minutes before the bus is scheduled to leave. Under the current funding option, the trip would take about 70 minutes. Jamal would transfer buses twice, waiting an average of 25 minutes for the first transfer and an average of 5 minutes for the second transfer. Jamal's trip would be the same under the growth option. Under the growth through consolidation option, Jamal's trip would take about 40 minutes. Jamal would transfer once and wait for an average of 5 minutes for the second bus. Jacob works at the Everett Mall and is commuting home to the Delta neighborhood around 10 p.m. Jacob arrives at the bus stop a few minutes early before the bus is scheduled to leave. Under the current funding option, the trip would take about 70 minutes. After riding the bus to Everett Station, Jacob would walk for about 20 minutes to get home as the bus service to his neighborhood has already shut down for the night. Jacob's trip would be the same under the growth option. Under the growth through consolidation option, the trip would take about 40 minutes and would serve Jacob's neighborhood, eliminating a long walk at night. Jacob would transfer once and wait for an average of 15 minutes for the second bus. Jamie is traveling from Mill Creek Town Center to Everett Mall. Jamie arrives at the bus stop a few minutes before the bus is scheduled to leave. Under the current funding option, the trip would take about 60 minutes. Jamie would transfer once, waiting an average of 25 minutes for the second bus. Jamie's trip would be the same under the growth option. Under the growth through consolidation option, the trip would take about 40 minutes. Jamie would transfer once, waiting an average of 15 minutes for the second bus. Please visit our online open house to get more information about these options and share your feedback at rethinket.participate.online.